had the, I hate to call it this, but honor of receiving Gardasil before it was approved for the market. She will tell you what's happened to her.
Hello, my name is Erin Crawford. I received 1 dose of Gardasil. Well, I was a student working in the Student Health Center for the university that has the Merck contract for research and development of Gardasil. And I was approached by a healthcare professional there and said, hey, we have this new vaccine, and it'll stop you from getting cervical cancer. Want to try it? And in the year and a half prior to that, leading up to this, I had lost 3 close family members to cancer. So that question very much fed straight into my fear. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. And I went right into the exam room and got that 1 shot and just continued on with my day. That night, I went to the dorm and went to sleep. And that night, I woke up in the middle of the night just vomiting. And so weak, I couldn't move. My arms and my legs all felt so like they weighed 1,000,000 pounds each. And just illness, just fevers, and within a couple of days, all of the lymph nodes in my neck and in the back of my head had swollen up really big. And my tonsils, eventually, I think it was about a week later, my tonsils swelled my airway shut, and I had to be rushed to the ER. And this started a pattern of constant tonsillitis. From there, and I was getting tonsillitis about once a month at that point, missing about 10 to 14 days of work and school, and I almost failed out of school and almost lost my job. From there, it was about 6 months of this constant illness. I finally actually ended up having an emergency tonsillectomy at one point, and then my menstrual cycle completely stopped, and I knew I wasn't pregnant, and testing ended up showing that I had stage 3 neuroendocrine carcinoma of the cervix, or stage 3 cervical cancer. So the very thing that I was trying to avoid. The interesting thing about this is that 3 months prior to getting that Gardasil vaccine, I had gone for my annual pap smear, and everything was good. Everything, clean bill of health. So in about a total of 9 total months, I went from clean bill of health to stage 3 cervical cancer and chronic tonsillitis to the point where I had to have my tonsils removed. On top of that, if my adrenaline pumped, if I got excited, if I got angry, I would faint. And I started reacting to all kinds of foods that I had never reacted to before. Over the next year and a half, I had several treatments on my cervix for the cervical cancer, eventually leading at, there was the first diagnosis. I had a laparoscopic procedure. A few months later, second diagnosis of cervical cancer, another laparoscopic procedure. A few months later, third diagnosis of cervical cancer. At this point, I had all of my cervix removed. Several months later, even though I didn't have a cervix at this point, I received a 4th diagnosis of cancer. So it was at this point that I actually said, well, the medical community is not helping me. And my oncologist said that I would die if I didn't do radiation and chemo. But I did know from watching my 3 family members I had lost, I knew that they had actually gone downhill with radiation and gone down and even further downhill with chemo. And so I opted out, and despite how afraid I was, I just started researching and studying and researching and studying. And I came across the Gerson protocol. I did not do the specific protocol as it is laid out, but I did do my own version of it, a 42-day juice fast, the coffee enemas. I started all kinds of alternative therapies, infrared saunas, magnesium float tanks, hyperbaric oxygen chamber therapy. I started chiropractic because it was very much a nervous system issue that I was experiencing. Chiropractic 3 times a week, acupuncture 2 or 3 times a week, on and on and on. And I learned about meditation through a yoga instructor, and I started doing meditation 6 months of constant alternative therapies, and I do mean constant. I went in for testing, and the cancer was gone. Thank you. I did do actually, we are seeing, I now know this, we are seeing that there is a mechanism of vaccine injury with testosterone. And I'm not a doctor or a scientist, so I don't claim to understand that. But I did do something very controversial. I did go through 3 rounds of testosterone therapy, and this is because estrogen feeds cancer. And so when you decrease estrogen, well, when you increase testosterone, it decreases estrogen, and that was actually, that worked really well for me. And then I also learned about the MTHFR gene mutation. I learned that I was positive for it, and that's when I started methyl B12 injections, and I started really focusing on anti-inflammatory because I didn't want the cancer to come back. So I really focused on anti-inflammatory dieting. I went, what I now know is paleo. I didn't at this time know it as paleo. All organic, no pesticides. Pesticides feed cancer or cause cancer. They are carcinogenic. Gardasil contains histidine, which is the precursor to histamine. So I have to be very, very careful about my histamine levels, and I have to be very careful about what I eat. Things that are considered healthy in many ways, avocados, bananas, strawberries, I can't have these. Or I can, but I have to be very careful about how much I have of them, and I do have to follow up with high levels of vitamin C, quercetin, that type of thing. Also, with anti-inflammatory diet, I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, soy-free. Soy feeds estrogen. Let's see. Also, low-carb, high-fat. You do want to avoid sugars. Sugars, again, feed cancer and inflammation. And carbs do break down to sugar. And fat, or healthy fats at least, a lot of coconut oil, they give you energy, which when I went through probably a total of 2 years of so fatigued, I didn't want to get out of bed. So high fat has helped my energy levels tremendously, and it's also great for brain health. High omega-3s, so a lot of hemp and chia seeds. And then also something that increases histamine levels is exercise, really getting your heart pumping. And so I have to be very careful about what I do for exercise. It's a lot of yoga and just walking. And then I also avoid aluminum. As we know from Dr. Lee's presentation, aluminum and the way that it binds. So, and I also avoid fluoride and folic acid. Folic acid does stop the absorption of real folate in the body. And so it's a continued effort. I got the shot, the vaccine in 2005, and luckily, I hate to say luckily, only the one shot. I think that's what saved me, and then why I'm here today. It's because I didn't get that second or third shot because I got so immediately sick. So it is just a continuous effort. I have to stay on top of these things, with cancer, and you just never really know. And it has been 10 years now since 11 years since I received the vaccine, and almost 9 years cancer-free. So thank you all. Yes, I did have with my tonsils, with my emergency tonsillectomy, we actually had them saved. And then with the final last removal of my cervix, we had that tissue saved as well and sent out to an independent pathologist where we had it tested, and they did test positive for HPV 16 and 18, both of which are in Gardasil. And like I said, just several months prior to that, I had a clean bill of health. So do I know for a fact that this vaccine caused all of this? No, but I do know that the very thing that I was trying to protect myself against, I ended up with, and it has been a long, hard battle against it this whole time. I feel like a lot of what I've said has repeated what Karsten said earlier about his daughter and how they healed, and her healing. But it's obviously, it works. And so mainly I just want Gardasil HPV vaccine victims to know that there is hope through all the therapies like you were just describing, and then through diet and lifestyle. So,
Thank you very much.